Tracks it down in front. Matthews to Marner. Have to hurry. Tim scores! John Tavares, overtime winner!
This is absolutely unbelievable by Austin Matthews. A complete turnaround. Take the cake to Mitch Marner.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of From the Booth. I'm John Bartlett alongside Greg Millen. As today we welcome someone who's been to 3 Olympics, 7 World Championships, and is one of the most influential names in the women's hockey world, Cassie Campbell-Pascall.
Yeah, I've done a lot of games with Cassie over the years. A wonderful person, and she will have some terrific stories. I know that here.
Member of the Order of Hockey in Canada and a member of the Order of Canada. Let's head to Calgary and welcome Cassie Campbell-Pascall. Cassie, you're looking great. You're on the bike a lot with all your friends and players riding all the time. So you're finding lots of ways to keep busy, I guess, nowadays.
Yeah, I think to sort of keep sane, through all of this and, just trying to keep fit and active. And I think that helps me mentally for sure. And, we kind of started this really fun Peloton, join the movement thing, if you will, with Ben Hebert, who's an Olympic gold medal curler. And we've got some of the national women's team players joining me as special guests. And, it's just kind of something to look forward to every week and keeps you fit. And I even got my husband now on the Peloton. He's loving it. So, it kind of helps to fill the days for sure.
I bet you're kicking his you-know-what as well on that. True?
You know what? He is not, since he's retired, he has not wanted to work out. That's not his thing. Whereas I've kind of sort of kept going. I mean, you let it slip here and there for sure, but he's actually enjoying it now. And I think he's gotten over that 10-day hump. Like, he's always been really good for 10 days. And then he kind of like, whatever, life happens. But he's kind of gotten over that. And I think he's starting to see this as a potential routine, and he's enjoying the music on the Peloton. And so I'm proud of him. He's been retired for a long time, and he's kind of getting back in exercising again, which is good.
You've got a little girl in Brooke. How's the grade 4 teaching coming along? Like all other parents at the moment.
I'm just praying she passes. It's tough, just to get them focused and some of the stuff that comes home, Millsy, like you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even understand this, and you're kind of, I'm reading about First Nations and the Métis and learning all these math things and French. Her French teacher has a Zoom call every Wednesday, but I'm going back to French. I finished in grade 11, so it's taken me back a little bit, and she's obviously our priority, and she's doing great and having fun. And I think especially this time of year for her, we'd both be gone, doing playoffs, and we're home and we're enjoying spring with her. So there is a blessing in disguise a little bit for us. So.
Yeah, who knew after all this you'd have to worry about passing grade 4 again on your own?
I don't even remember if I did actually pass. I think they just kind of put you through. But it's been really fun. Frustrating moments, but it's definitely been fun.
Well, I want to take you back. We're going to talk about sort of your start in broadcast and player, but there's a little unique part about your family that I always love talking about, and it actually connects to the time we're in right now. You have a relation through family bloodlines with Lucy Maud Montgomery in Prince Edward Island, of course, who is the author of Anne of Green Gables books. And the interesting part is Lucy Maud Montgomery actually had the Spanish flu and survived it in 1919. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting tidbit. I always like that little connection that you have with the history of Lucy Maud Montgomery, but she actually survived the Spanish flu 100 years ago, and now here we are trying to get through all of this. So that's kind of a nifty little tie, I guess, when you look at it that way, a little historical thing.
Yeah. John, I didn't know that. So that's really cool. And I obviously knew I was related to Lucy Maud Montgomery, but I didn't know she survived the Spanish flu. And we're strong. Us Campbells from PEI, she's part of that whole family. And my great-great-grandfather was, that's how the relation is, married her mother's sister. And my father grew up in the house where she was married in. So, it's a big part of our family. And I did not know that. So you just taught me something today. I appreciate it.
No problem. I thought it was cool. Yeah. And it's fun to go out. If you're in PEI, you should visit Green Gables and the Anne of Green Gables Museum, which, of course, that's the big connection for you there. So anyways, thought I'd throw that part in. start off though as a player. So you had the chance, of course, growing up. You were born in Richmond Hill, and you've had time now, of course, to live on both the east and western sides of the country. But your progress as a player, did you ever think at any time when you were going through all the national team program and everything that you would end up being a hockey broadcaster when you were a player?
I kind of dabbled in it. I'd fill in for breakfast television in the mornings in Calgary when I was training here. So I, show up there at 5 and, I would finish at 9, and then I'd be off to the rink for, our 10:30 practice or whatever it was. And, I kind of dabbled in it throughout my career, more so just to kind of keep myself a bit balanced after, graduating from university, and, kind of dabbled in a lot of things. And so it wasn't something I had planned, it was sort of something that, I did women's hockey and CIS hockey. And, that was sort of what I wasn't playing in that level, so I could cover those. And, enjoyed talking about hockey. And then when the Hockey Night in Canada experience came, I literally got a call in September, and the year I started, and did an audition, if you will, at a Leafs preseason game. And honestly, like, Jim Huff was there, and he told me, he goes, it wasn't necessarily what the questions you asked and what you said. He goes, you just knew everyone at the rink. And he goes, that was sort of what impressed me. And so I didn't know. And I, unfortunately, we saw the Colleen Joneses and we saw the Brenda Irvings, and but we, working on Hockey Night in Canada, there was just very few women that had done it. And I think I became, maybe the fourth one, and going way back to Helen Hutchinson, back in the 70s. And I didn't know where it was going to take me, and it ended up working out great. And it's hard to believe I'm aging myself, but it's, I'm going to be year 15 next year if they hire me back. So it's been a long time now.
Cassie, you said something that I've obviously witnessed. You know everybody at the rink. You've lived at the rink your entire life. I'd like to talk to you. You did everything in women's hockey. You won every possible award you could. Maybe take me back a little bit to those times in your life, and how you've watched the women's game now progress over the years. I find it fascinating when I talk to you about that.
Millsy, like we always took it professionally. We always trained and spent just as much time in the gym, and skill sessions and shooting sessions, and you name it. We did that even in my generation. And now there's no one in my generation that's as good as the players today, and how skilled they are and how fit they are. And that's what you want, right? It's the evolution of the game, and the way the players shoot and the skill level. And, they've been training at a high level since they were younger kids. And, I didn't really start training seriously until I was, almost after my first Olympics even. And, it was just like we went
no different in the men's game.
Yeah. And we went to the gym and we worked out, but we didn't really even know what we were doing. And then it evolves, and, it became sort of a profession. And I was, one of the lucky ones where I had a lot of things kind of going on outside of the rink too. And it allowed me probably to play a little bit longer. But now these kids are amazing. They amaze me. And they're just so skilled. They're so talented. And I've recently gone back part-time with Hockey Canada over this last year, and I'm just relearning the program and learning, what they do, and learning the people that are around, from the staff to the players. I never really played with any of these players. So it's been really fun for me, and it's something that, definitely I probably want to do more of, down the road. And it just impresses me how dedicated these athletes are, and how professional, like truly professional it is now, with the exception of they don't get paid, other than if you're on the national team. We still don't have a professional women's league yet. And, one day I hope we get there where these girls can make a living, and their living is better than their wages are a little bit higher than their expenses. And one day we'll get there, and I believe that.
Come a long way from the pink uniforms from the very first World Championships, haven't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's funny. But that World Championship, John, like I was 16 years old, and that influenced me so much. I got to meet those women at the Brampton Canadettes tournament after that tournament, and to see those women in the flesh, and to see, like, holy smokes, I can play for Team Canada. Like, who knew? And that's kind of what we're getting more and more of, is these current players, how great of ambassadors they are, and there's more of them, and people know more about them, and it's not just one or two faces anymore. And they're I'm so impressed with how they handle the young kids and how important they understand that is, that they're role models. And so, you know, that 1990 pink uniform team, that was it for me. That was, you know, the Laura Schuler, the France St. Louis, the Angela Janes, all those people. Like, when I got a chance to meet them, that was, it kept my career going for sure.
The funny thing now is that's what you are. You're the role model for a lot of young girls. Well, you were for a player, and now as a broadcaster. And I laugh about this because I've been with you sometimes where you laugh that it's the moms want the daughters to get a picture with you because the moms know you as the player, and you always joke the kids, who's this old lady you're taking a photo with? We've had that experience, which is why I laugh about it. But now you went from being a role model as a player to a role model as a broadcaster for young girls. So I think that's kind of cool that you sort of hold both those roles in that sense.
You know, I feel fortunate. Like, you're just lucky to be put in a position like that where, you know, most of the kids come up and they're like, okay, my mom told me to get this lady's autograph, but I really don't know who she is. And, you know, it's kind of neat, you know, because I grew up in a generation where, you know, no one also asked for my autograph, and no one knew who we were, and no one really cared. And then to see, you know, someone come up and ask you for an autograph, you're kind of like, hey, what's going on here? But it's been pretty special, and you understand it. You understand that that's your position you're in, and you're lucky to be in that position. And, you know, you try to sign everything you can and talk to everyone you can, and that helps grow the game as well.
Cassie did an unbelievable job as a host, and we worked together a lot of games and had a lot of fun doing it. And now, of course, you're in the booth, and maybe you could share with us the story the first time you were in the booth. I know the story, but it was pretty interesting the way it all worked out.
Yeah, it was kind of a crazy day. You know, it was my second day on the job, my second Saturday, and I had done the Battle of Alberta the week before in Calgary here. And, you know, we all grew up watching Hockey Night in Canada, and you know, you've been a part of it for such a long time. But until you're on the show, that first couple of times, you're just, you know, you're kind of blown away and you're nervous. And for me, I, you know, was kind of representing the women's game too. And, you know, then my second day on the job, they tell me the morning of that Harry Neal can't be there. And what do you know, and I'm thinking they're playing a rookie joke on me. I had no idea. And
Really wasn't around.
Yeah. You know, sure enough, I ended up doing color that night. And I had done women's hockey in that position, so I kind of knew what buttons to push. But, you know, then you look to your right, and there's Bob Cole. And, you know, it was just an overwhelming night, but it ended up being a wonderful game. Matt Sundin scored his 500th goal and overtime hat trick, and it was against the Flames. And it was a really special night. And, you know, I'll never forget that night. I know everything about it. I can remember, you know, who was there, and, you know, who was my producer, who was, you know, my AD behind me, who was, like, you kind of remember so many details about that. And I think at the time, you know, Hockey Night didn't know what I knew. They didn't know that I watched hockey just as much as you would have. And they didn't know what I would know about the game. And I think that kind of opened some eyes to them. And, you know, I made some mistakes. I actually watched it. It was on a rerun, and I made so many mistakes. You look back at it now, but it was a real special night. It was really key. And I think my dad took it the hardest because I got criticized heavily for the next few months or so. But, you know, he was listening to talk radio and all that stuff. But it was a great experience that opened a door for me. And you know, it allowed me to eventually evolve to now do it full time.
I only have to say this, 2 words: Bob Cole, and your relationship with Bob and some of the great stories.
Well, since that night, you know, the night you were, you know, doing color with him, I call him Mr. Bob Cole. So anytime I ever introduced him on a broadcast after that night, I just felt that I owed him. You know, I felt that I owed him the respect that he deserved. And, you know, just to work with him and the things you kind of got to deal with, right? But he is such a legend. And one of my favorite stories was in Columbus. And I can't remember if it was a playoff game. I believe it was a playoff game. I think it was Pittsburgh-Columbus. And, you know, you guys know, you come out of the rink and there's that big hill that kind of goes up to the main part of the city, and then you kind of walk down to get to your hotel. Well, you know, he can't walk up this big hill, and you know, you know, I think it was 80 at the time, and so I pulled over a rickshaw, you know, one of those guys that, you know, pulls you up on runs with the thing, and he's like, well, I'm not getting in a rickshaw with some guy. And so then I had to, he only would go in the rickshaw if I went with him, you know, and then it was like him and I going up the hill together, this kind of funny, jokingly romantic moment. And but just, things like that. And I think just getting a chance to talk to him and hear his stories and pick his brain and the demands he has, like he had done it for so long that he had demands of how he wanted things to be and how meticulous he was and the way he called the game and, stay away from the dots and, don't talk when the puck's, dots down and, let it, stay away from the face-offs. And, there's kind of, he was the last of a play-by-play generation that just did play-by-play, and no offense, John, but it has evolved to where the play-by-play kind of adds a little bit of color now and kind of adds a little bit of detail. And so it was really fun to work with him. And we text all the time and keep in touch. And, I was proud to do one of his games last season, his 50th year. And, I asked Ed Hall if I could do one game, please let me do one game. And I ended up doing Chicago at Montreal with him. And it was a highlight of my career. And he had a big influence on it for sure.
How about the experiences that you've had now? As you said, this will be coming up on 15th season. So the experiences you've learned along the way, both as a host, in the booth, you talk about working with Bob, but maybe things that you never expected you would experience once you're on this side of the camera and broadcast. Is there anything along the way where you think, moments that stand out from behind the scenes going, wow, I didn't expect it would be this kind of a day or this kind of a thing would happen?
I think, for me, I've enjoyed, going to the morning skates. And I think that's something that I'll always enjoy. I think you always get little tidbits. And I love watching the players and what they practice the morning skates. And they don't do them as much as they did when I first started in the business. They take more of them off. But I've always really enjoyed that. And there's been times where guys talk to me as a former player. And sometimes I'm like, do you want me to say that? Or like, and they're like, no, we're just talking. And I'm like, okay, good. I just wanted to clarify. And so it's been fun. Just, a lot of this generation in particular grew up watching women's hockey, right? So they don't think anything different. And I've always felt like I was accepted, which is nice. And I think the only one thing that was awkward to me was, I forget who it was, but someone got hurt in Montreal and the ambulance came and, my producer was kind of asking me, you need to get this story. You need to follow up on the story. And I was kind of like, hey, like the guy's going off in an ambulance, let's just wait for the update and I think that was maybe one of my only awkward moments where I was like, I don't know, that's the former player in me. And I think that's a private time. And then you also realize, well, as the host, that was my job. Right. And so you tried to get as much information as you could. But the one thing I kind of wouldn't do was follow the ambulance kind of like they wanted me to. And those types of things as a former player probably hurt you sometimes, but at the same time, I think they bring you some credibility when you really need something that's important and more important to the game. And so, there's been some fun times and not so fun times. I remember one time I had the flu covering the playoff game and I was literally interviewing someone, going to the bathroom, being sick, and then, telling my story, going back to the bathroom, being sick. And so we've all had those moments where we just kind of had to fight through things, but overall I've had a great experience. And, you guys and Millsy and, Millsy did my first playoff series when I had my daughter and I left her at home with my husband and I turned into a mama bear and, he kind of took me under his wing. I don't know if he remembers this. And he said, Cass, I want to talk to you. And he took me into a side at the rink and he knew, and they knew I was struggling being away from my infant daughter. And he said, Cass, we're going to take you for dinner tonight to Burns Steakhouse. We were in Tampa, and we highly recommend, that you have a glass of wine. And that was his way of saying, you're kind of being a bitch right now, and we know you're struggling, but we need you. So it was a moment I'll never forget. And Millsy, I don't even know if you remember doing that, but it was a Pittsburgh-Tampa series, and I think Tampa was up 3-1. And Pittsburgh ended up coming back and winning in 7 or something like that, or vice versa. And it was like, it just dragged out to game 7 and I couldn't wait to get home. And anyway, it was a real fun playoffs for sure.
I remember it well, Cassie. And no, you were never that, by the way. I've never ever used that word around you. So just so you know that. And I can also tell you that maybe I was designated to do it because I was the one with the 4 children and been there, done it. So, maybe I was voted onto the assignment. I can't quite remember that part. But let's talk about this year and talk about the incredible moment you had with your fellow colleagues, all women on the broadcast that happened during the season. A pretty special moment, I'm sure, for you to be a part of that.
Yeah, it was funny. Like, that was a big game, in the NHL. It was Vegas at Calgary and Pacific Division. And, first place was not necessarily up for grabs that game, but it really dictated a lot. And I was honored that Sportsnet took a national game. They didn't just give us some regional game. They took a national game on a Sunday night, a meaningful game. And for me and Christine, it was kind of easy. We did our same roles that we do normally. But for Leah, who's a great friend of mine, Leah Hextall, she has a real job. She works for the province of Manitoba, and she was calling Jets games behind the scenes, and she was traveling to junior games in Manitoba, getting as much experience as she could that year. And she really worked hard for it. And that's one thing I've always respected about Leah, is her work ethic. And she brings it, and she brings stories, and she's, at the rinks early. And so I was really proud to be with her. I was really proud to be part of that moment for her, because it was a really big moment. The first time a female did play-by-play in the NHL. And it was a great experience from, our whole team behind the scenes, which was predominantly women. And you guys know, when you don't work with the same people, you don't get into a rhythm, you don't get into a flow. But for the most part, I found there was very few glitches, and everyone deserved to be there, and it was a real fun experience, and hopefully it opens doors down the road for more opportunities for Leah.
Yeah, Leah, it's even fun that you mentioned Leah, because kind of old school in the way that she has gone about working on her craft. As you said, taking the tape recorder, going to the junior games. She was even at some Manitoba Moose games, just in a booth recording on her own. And that's kind of fun. You and I, of course, had the luxury of doing a lot of women's hockey together in the CWHL games. And I thought it was great that got the chance to sort of pass over to Leah, where she can take it now and run with it. And that was a lot of fun to see. And same for me. It was fun to see her get a chance to do a game like that.
Well, what impressed me, John, was when you come to do the CWHL games, you knew more than I did. You had kept up, and you'd followed it. And that's the great thing, I think, about your generation. And, you guys get these opportunities to call women's hockey, and you take it just as seriously as you would an NHL game. And I've always appreciated that. Dave Randorf was the same. When he called women's hockey, and I knew I had to bring my A game to cover the CWHL, because you would always know more than I did, and not that I wouldn't, of course, but it was definitely fun. And I think for you to kind of step back, because I know you enjoyed it, and allow Leah that opportunity. I mean, that's leadership, and that's caring about people around you and wanting people around you to be better. And some people would say, oh no, she could take my position down the road, so let's just keep her down here. But you never did that, and I know she appreciated it too.
Well, so I got to tell one quick funny story about Cassie will appreciate this. Working with our good friend Cheryl Pounder one game, and we were doing, I think it was an SO Cup or something. So you can imagine how much Cheryl was relying on her notes that game when you're at that level where you're scrambling as it is. And we went to do an intermission hit, and she's standing beside me, and the cable on the headset was reaches. Oh, hold on, and we're live. So I only have a few seconds, and I kind of pulled the cable to get some room, and it spilled her coffee across the entire notes. She lost everything. Yeah, it was just panic. And of course, now we're both laughing about it. And we had to do, I think it was, thank goodness it was second intermission, a third period of this game where you hardly knew anything about the girls as it was anyways, and she had to live without her notes. So yeah, just did it there, pulled the wire right out.
That was usually my job, is spilling coffee.
Yeah, that's him.
The play-by-play guy. But
yeah, you're good for that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I am. But one quick one, Cassie, just on the Calgary Flames. We have to, ask you about the Flames. You cover them, of course. Your husband is a manager for the Flames, and too bad. They seemed to be really starting to come on when this all happened after a year that was kind of a bit up and down after last year, the way they played.
Yeah, and we're kind of living it. I see the disappointment in him, and I'm not sure they were quite ready to get to that Stanley Cup hump, but they were definitely making some strides. And I think Lucic was a big part of making them a little bit more intimidating to play against, a little bit more physical. And but yeah, they were finally kind of coming together. And you're right, they faced so much adversity throughout the year. Some of their stars, haven't necessarily had the production that they've had in the past, and they have a coaching change. And of course, TJ Brody, you know, has the incident at practice, which, you know, sets a team back. You know, you care about your teammates so much. And I think it took the guys some time to kind of galvanize around that. And it was just kind of an up and down year. And they finally found some sort of consistent lines near the end. And so it's disappointing. And, you know, that's the thing, you've lived it, and you know how disappointing it is for the season to end as a player. You can feel it, you know what it would feel like. And I'm living it. You know, I see my husband on meetings every day, and they're just so disappointed. You put so much time and effort into this time of year. You know, this is when hockey really means the most. And they're definitely disappointed. And I know they're having Zoom calls, and they're trying to keep together as a group, and the management group's having calls every day. And then of course they get updates from the NHL pretty much every day. And he's involved in the AHL stuff, so he's doing that pretty much every day. And it's, you know, but you want to play. And I know a lot of them just can't wait to hopefully get back. And I don't think they care if it's July, August, September. They want to get back and play.
Yeah, I think we all feel that way. As long as it's safe for everyone, that we all want to get back to it. I think everyone needs it. All right, one final thing for you here, Cass. 3 Olympics, 7 World Championships, member of the Order of Hockey of Canada, member of the Order of Canada. What are you most proud of so far in your career as it relates to hockey and maybe broadcast as well?
I think for me, you know, I really enjoy the post part of my career, where a lot of the girls still call me and ask me for advice on life and business, and, you know, if they're coaches. And, you know, I'm really proud that I still have a great relationship with my teammates. And, you know, we don't connect as much as we would like to, because we're all busy doing our own thing. But I think that's something I'm really proud of, is that post-career, you know, people still kind of value what advice I could give them, and the friendships I think that we had. And so that's been really fun. And, you know, last year I did my first selection committee with the Hockey Hall of Fame committee, and, you know, walking into that room with all those great men, you know, and they accepted me, and it was definitely an overwhelming moment, and I was trying to be cool about it. And, you know, I wore a dress, I dressed up for it. It was pretty exciting. And again, I'm trying to, you know, just be cool, calm, and collected. And to walk into that room with those men, it was pretty special. And just the way that they respected me and kind of took me under their wing was really neat. And to understand how thorough the process is. So that was definitely a highlight too. But it's family, John. Like, I've met my family through hockey. I met my husband through hockey. We have one daughter, and you know, that's kind of family and friends, I think, still are right up there as far as achievements and accomplishments and successes and happiness. And, you know, I've had a lot of great moments in hockey. I've been really, really lucky. But those things that, you know, I just mentioned are, you know, right at the top.
Well, we sure are glad to have you part of our hockey family and friends as well. And this is a lot of fun, Cass. So we're really proud of you as well. And can't wait to see you back at a rink soon. But in the meantime, good luck in passing grade 4 again.
Well, thanks, you guys. You're both instrumental in my broadcasting career and in my life. So thanks for having me on, and love you both. Okay, stay safe.
Right.
Cassie.
A pleasure to chat with Cassie. We have a lot of fun stories. I know she talks about when we did the women's games together, how I seem to know more than her. She knew a lot more too, I can assure you. And it was kind of funny how we'd rattle stories off each other, what we knew off the top of our heads for stuff. So we always had a good laugh with that.
And just think about all the things she has done in hockey. And she comes back to what most of us always think, you know, the greatest part about this game are the people in it. And Cassie's a wonderful person.
Certainly is. One of those great people in the game that we love very much. And we love you for watching this. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. So long.